Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is John D. Contradiction, one half of Sticks and Stones Gaming, coming at you with another review. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Moonlighter on the Stadia. Yes, I am the only person on Earth who stands by the Stadia. And yeah, man, let's dive into it. But right before I jump into it, please, it helps the page and all that good stuff. Give us a like and subscribe if you rock with what we're doing. Check us out. We're doing a lot of weird, unorthodox reviews. There's going to be a lot more VR content coming soon. If you guys experienced update 30 for the Oculus, then you understand that I am backlogged and have to do things over again because it deleted a whole bunch of my stuff. But anyways, let's jump right into this review. So, game length. Roughly the game, I think I finished it in about 20 hours, and that's including the Between Dimensions DLC. I'm going to keep it honest. I played this game for probably 3 days straight, so I'm saying 20 hours just to not make myself seem like a slob, but it could have been, honestly, 16 hours from each of these days, just back to back, because I really enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. And I didn't fully collect everything and max out the items list and find every single thing you can find or purchase all the weird stuff DLC included. But I did max out my weapons, my armor, and all the stuff I needed to finish the game. And I got all the upgrades as far as the stuff you can purchase in the game, but we'll dive more into that. But yeah, I'd say, give or take 20 hours. Story quality or storytelling. The storytelling is straight to the point, man. Nothing crazy. It's pretty much told by the main character's grandpa, Xenon, but in a more complaining and stay safe kind of way, if that makes sense. You just got to go with the environments and the small bits you get from the people in town. But it's very straight to the point. It's not really the focus of the game, so it's not this big in-depth lore-filled thing. It's more of when you create a video game on one of those RPG creators type thing, and all the focus goes into the outside, but not fully the story, just the look and everything like that. It's not great, but it's not what matters, to this type of game. One thing you will notice and could get a bit confusing is the tutorial and how it's presented. It's all done by pictures that are gameplay friendly but very cartoonish, and they're mostly simple, but sometimes I stared at them for a bit to try to figure out what to do before I moved forward. Gameplay. So the gameplay is this I'm gonna talk a lot. The gameplay is what makes this game excellent as far as I'm concerned. I'm gonna explain it as simple as I can while trying to hide my excitement, but in short, it's A Link to the Past meets Stardew Valley. But the long-winded version of it is you're a salesman and you run a store selling goods, but the goods consist of anything you don't use for upgrades and stuff like that, or just things that you get when you traverse the 4 dungeons in the original campaign. And the last dungeon is a boss fight. There's 5 areas, but the last dungeon is just a straight boss fight. And then the DLC adds another dungeon, but with a bunch of floors. Each dungeon is about 3 floors. And when you do that last DLC one, it's 9 or 10. It's ridiculous. But either way, main story wise, the 4 main dungeons consist of 3 floors, each having mid-boss, and then a big final boss. And the gameplay mechanics is it's very roguelike. When you get defeated in these dungeons, everything you've collected is lost, giving it that rogue feel. You lose money and stuff too. And there are things in the dungeon that help but cost money. For example, there's a medallion that transports you back to your store, but that costs a little bit of money, and you'll understand the importance of money in the game. And this also resets the dungeon, so when you go back, you have to start from scratch, but you can leave at any time. If you're mid-boss battle and you're yo, I'm gonna die, I don't want to lose this stuff, you can dip. It costs a little money, but you can dip, and at least you make it out with your goods. And then there's also a lens that you get. From what I recognize, it's usually on the second floors. I didn't use it much, so I didn't pay it much mind, but I know it would appear on second floors. Is you can insta-sell things that are in your inventory, but they were for way cheaper than you can actually sell them for, especially if you didn't price anything at all. And lastly, there's this portal that costs a bunch of money, but it gives you the option to teleport back to your store and then teleport right back to where you were in the cave, the exact same floor and part of the cave. So it's good for clearing up space to take some, risks in the dungeon. And when you're inside the dungeon, the gameplay is very straightforward. It's very Link to the Past. You get different melee weapons, bow and arrow if you want. You can have 2 weapons at a time, and each class has its own advantages and such, so you don't have to you're just gonna have to find what works for you, and you can only attack up, down, left, and right, that kind of thing. So you got to really work your angles with some weapons. For example, I love the heavy sword. has like a circular attack and its own kind of strategy built around it. But outside of that, you'll be playing with angles and like cheesing your way to take as little damage as possible. Another aspect of the dungeon is a huge emphasis on inventory space and items having like, some of them have curses and effects, for example, that will have a directional curse. So when it's put in your inventory, it can affect items around it. Like, hey, this weapon will, clear curse of any weapon to the left or to the right of it, or it'll break something, or it'll turn into something when you leave the dungeon. And, it adds this nice little strategy. Like some of the best ones you'll find is they have some that will transport stuff directly to your shop. So if you have like important stuff you're needing for upgrades and stuff, you could just send it away without risking like losing it via death. It's enough to make you think and plan, but also keeps you aware of what you need and don't need in your inventory rather than just, piling shit up like in Skyrim. It's a great little bit of thinking to add to like the already like solid dungeon gameplay. One last thing too for the dungeon that I did forget to mention, which is pretty important. You can't really slack when you're in the dungeon or waste too much time like looking for stuff, because then the Wanderer, which is attached to the DLC, he appears and it's like a scary little timer and he can one hit kill you immediately. And it's pretty terrifying. It turns into almost like a, Resident Evil Mr. X type nemesis thing, and he just chases you throughout the rest of it, and he can be there for a boss fight, so you can't really slack. You kind of got to be in and out, which is, which keeps things fun, man, keeps things spicy. And then after that, that's when the good stuff kicks in. This is when you're in your store and you're in charge of putting stuff on display, pricing items, opening the store, keeping customers happy. You have to sell stuff when they're online to pay, or they get impatient and that could mess up your customers. If you overprice stuff, the items themselves will lose popularity. If you underprice it, the popularity will rise, allowing you to raise prices. It's a great system, and it also offers events in the store. Like there's thieves. You get these rich snobby customers that'll just buy shit, so you just jack the prices up. Sometimes birds will get loose in there, and you gotta like catch it because it'll mess with people shopping. It's a good time, man, and you can upgrade the store, add a whole bunch of like areas to place stuff, like sales baskets and all sorts of, just little things. Like there's items you can add to the wall that change the state of the shoppers. Like it'll increase or decrease wait time or change the odds of like the percentage of thieves that'll actually come in, things that'll increase tips that are paid out via purchases. It's a lot, man. And it gets more in depth the more you increase the store size and the things you have in the store. It's a good time, man. I truly love this half of it. If you max out the store, you can eventually pay for like other shops to be open, like the blacksmiths, the salesmen, the alchemists, and they help you with your purchases throughout the game. You can buy stuff for instant upgrades rather than, hunting them down, even though this gets a little tricky with the DLC. And it also increases like the town's popularity due to your sales. And like when you clear each dungeon, more people come about. So more opportunity for more money, more, better items. But you also unlock this stocks guy that you can get involved in. Like of the highest key, I worked his stock system to make bank. And that's just a fun little thing for me, like just counting the days of when like the percentage is up and down and me just, grinding my way to a whole bunch of money and trying to work the stock market till I hit my first few millions. So the formula's here, man, and it's fantastic. It's a really unique, fun experience outside of just like the dungeon crawling and stuff, which was also pretty solid. Dialogue, man, also solid. There's no actual voice acting, just the words of the townspeople and mainly you and your grandpa. Well, not even you, mainly your grandpa. But when it's like in cutscene mode, the dialogue is filled with like RPG satire, and sometimes it like they poke shots and pay homage to the games that it was influenced by. And it has good self-awareness and like a nice solid sense of humor. So it's pleasant when it's available. It's not like something that takes you out of the game. It's just a good time. It's short, it's smooth. It kind of reminded me of like Golf Story, where there's like a lot of jokes and stuff like that, but it was solid. Controls are simple. It never got annoying or difficult, and the game provided a HUD, which makes it even easier. And it's very simple to get into. You didn't really need the HUD, but it kind of babies you with that. And let's be realistic. You have your weak attack button, you have your strong attack that can charge, you have dodge, you switch weapons, you heal, and that's really it. The only thing that I didn't figure out till like a bit late was when you're in your inventory, when you're in like the dungeon and stuff, to actually drop items. If you want to clear space, you have to select them and then exit the backpack, but with a specific button. There's like the close your menu button, and then there's like a specific exit button that allows you to drop items. And I don't remember getting hinted with that. Maybe I kind of blew over it in the beginning, but I was through most of the game just transferring items via like the treasure chests and stuff you'd find. So I was doing a lot of backtracking and whatnot, but it didn't really take me out. I enjoyed it. And when I figured it out, I was like, oh, but you know, it is what it is. Character development. The development's face value. You see the characters, items change as you equip and upgrade. You see the store and the city grow due to your success and like all these people coming in. And though all this stuff is happening, the main character himself is kind of like a silent vessel that really doesn't show like growth or anything like that. But he just, you know, based off what you have, the growth is there in the gameplay sense, but not in like a story sense. You don't get much from him. It's just like, oh, he's still not listening to his grandpa. And that's really it. Graphics and level design, man, they're clean. It's like a nice upgrade with some flair to the old school over the top 8-bit style. Like the design is simple, the town looks great and bright, and it's not that huge. So you get used to it, and the dungeons are randomly generated but never reach the point of complex. So it's really straight to the point with areas that you can fall in like these crevices or dodge over them, and they have like these very blank areas with something in there. But it's mostly just like copy and paste walls and doors, and small details change, but it's randomly generated, so you can't ask for too much. The models, though, that's where all the details go in, like the character models, the movements, especially the enemies and like the bosses. They low-key have more animations than the main character himself, and the variety is there. Like there are the copy and paste ones where like in different dungeons it's the same bad guy but a different color, but there's such a good variety, and like a lot of them have like different strategies to beat them. It keeps the game interesting, and it does raise the difficulty like with the game as you're going into different dungeons, so it never really threw me off. Like I think it was super fair for the gameplay that I had, if not maybe a little better than it should have been for how much gameplay was put into it. So I mean, there's that. Like I enjoyed it. The sound, solid sound and music, but I was so immersed in like the gameplay that the sound and stuff was the last of my focus. Honestly, a lot of the times I play games with my own music. If the music isn't really catching me or it doesn't like blow my mind, you know, if it's not like Zelda music or, you know, Metroid music and stuff like that, then I'm just like, all right, I can put on some other stuff. But the sound effects, from what I remember, sounded pretty solid. You know, it wasn't nothing too crazy. Replay value, it's hard to gauge. So I was so involved and needed more immediately, to the point where I bought the DLC like immediately after I started New Game Plus. And like I played it, I didn't breathe. It felt like there's one full playthrough. And once I finished it, I felt done. You know, I have no reason to jump back into it, but it was super satisfying, you know? So it's really hard to gauge replay value. Like if I wanted to collect everything I could, but I would just be, you know, just doing it to flex. So I feel like that gauge is more so like, if you love the game like I loved it, and you're not doing game reviews and like trying to play a billion games, then you would gladly do that. So I'm going to give it a little more than moderate, but again, you know, it's hard for me to gauge personally. But other than that, man, this game was super dope, man. I really enjoyed it. A very unique, fun little feel. I love these indie, like arcade type style games. Not arcade style, but you know what I mean. I call them arcade games all the time because of like the Xbox Arcade, because this is a game that would go straight to Xbox Arcade. And I just really enjoyed this vibe, man. I enjoyed the way it looked. And I love hidden gems like this. Like I'm upset no one told me about this, but yeah, man, if you guys have played this, let us know. I want to talk to people about it in the comments. I know there's a big Reddit community. There's like a whole bunch of people who are deeply involved in this game. So I would like to get into that with some real people. I want to talk to you guys about it. But also, if you know any games that are similar to this, of this kind of caliber, send it our way. Like, let me know. I'm trying to play it. I love games like this. So talk nice to me. And if you're a fan of these kind of games, man, put me on, because I love stuff like this, Golf Story, Stardew Valley, which I mentioned. Those are games that I love, Zelda games, stuff like that. So I'm here for it. But that's really all I got for this review, man. If you guys enjoyed this and you made it this far, a like and subscribe would truly be appreciated. But the main important thing is that you interact and talk to us, because we just love video games and we want to talk video games with you. But I'm John D. Contradiction, and I'm signing off. Peace.